Today, we're going to look past the mushroom cloud. We're diving into the unseen fallout of nuclear weapons, all the consequences that have, well, nothing to do with physics, and absolutely everything to do with human psychology, our fears, and the stories we tell ourselves. Seriously, take a second. Picture it. What do you see? I'm willing to bet that for almost all of us, it's one single, terrifying image that's been burned into our collective imagination for over 75 years. And there it is, the mushroom cloud. This symbol, it's a relic of the Cold War, and it's so powerful, so overwhelming that it's usually the end of the conversation. But you know what? For us, today, it's just the beginning. So let's get into our first section, Beyond the Blast Wave. We're going to start peeling back the layers of destruction to really uncover those hidden costs, the ones that stick around long after the smoke is cleared. This brings us to a really central concept for this whole discussion: intangible consequences. Okay, so think of it this way. It's everything that happens after the initial physical blast. All the chaos that's not driven by the weapon itself, but by the reactions of people, of institutions, people just like you and me. And this quote just nails the problem perfectly, doesn't it? We get so mesmerized, so horrified by the physical spectacle that we completely fail to even consider all the other stuff. The social, political, and economic tsunamis that are sure to follow. Okay, this visual of the scales, it just frames the issue perfectly. Think back to 9/11. The direct physical damage, what you see on the one side, was absolutely horrific. But then look at the response. The wars, the economic fallout, the complete overhaul of global security. That weighed far heavier on the world. And that is the power of intangible consequences. All right, let's move into our second section, the echoes of disaster. Now that we have a pretty good idea of what these intangible consequences are, let's take a look at the anatomy of the aftermath. Let's see what these echoes actually look and feel like in the real world. So researchers tend to group these effects into 4 big buckets. First, you've got the psychological trauma, right? Like the incredible anxiety that lingered for years after Chernobyl. Then there's social breakdown, where the bonds of community just snap under the pressure. You also have the economic shockwaves that can trigger a global depression. And finally, the political fallout, like the huge loss of public trust after the 3 Mile Island incident. This chart is just a fantastic illustration of the raw power of fear. So back in 1987, a radioactive device was broken open in Goiânia, Brazil. Now look at these numbers. Only 249 people were actually contaminated, but over 112,000 people, that's 10% of the entire city's population, flooded hospitals out of sheer panic. They completely overwhelmed the system. They became known as the worried well. And this firsthand account from a survivor of Hiroshima, it gives such a chilling voice to that idea of social breakdown. In the face of a disaster that's just too big to comprehend, our instinct for collective action can just evaporate. It gets replaced by a desperate tunnel vision focus on our own survival. Which leads us to our third section, how war stories are made. So we've seen just how devastating these intangible effects can be. So why? Why aren't they part of our mental picture of this? Why do we always go back to the blast? Well, the answer has a lot to do with how our perceptions get crafted through stories. Our entire understanding of war is built piece by piece by the stories we consume. You know, from big Hollywood blockbusters to viral videos on the internet. These narratives, they don't just entertain us. They actually build the very framework for what we think is important, and maybe more importantly, what we ignore. Think about it from a creator's perspective for a second, especially in something like animation or a CGI-heavy movie. You can't just write in the script, "a battle happens." No, you have to describe every single visual element, and this naturally pushes storytellers toward what's most visually dramatic and easy to describe. You know, explosions, falling buildings, the physical spectacle of it all. The point is, these war narratives don't just appear out of nowhere. They are constructed things. They're built step by step, just like anything else. An idea is chosen, usually one with a lot of visual potential, and then it's deliberately crafted into a story that's designed to grab and hold our attention. And here's the really crucial point for us today. Modern content creation, especially with AI, puts this whole bias on steroids. We feed it visual prompts, right? We say mushroom cloud over a city, not a visualization of long-term economic despair. What you get is a feedback loop that just relentlessly focuses our attention on the spectacle of the blast, leaving the human fallout totally in the shadows. So this brings us to our final section, and honestly, the most critical part of this entire discussion, choosing our response. We're talking about the controllable fallout. Because here's the thing, while we can't control physics, we absolutely can control ourselves. This slide right here, this is the central idea of this whole explainer. On one side, you have the physical effects of a bomb. They are governed by physics. Once it's in motion, it's uncontrollable. But the intangible effects, the fear, the policy choices we make, the economic chaos, all of that is governed by human decisions. And that means they are, at least in theory, controllable. And as the analyst Dallas Boyd argues, if we ignore this fact, we are willingly making ourselves helpless. We're choosing to be defenseless against the very consequences that we actually have the power to shape and to mitigate. This is a call for preparedness. And I'm not talking about building bunkers. I'm talking about building psychological and political resilience. It's about understanding that our reactions, the choices we make, can either compound the tragedy or they can begin the process of recovery. And if you need a reminder of the sheer staggering scale of these controllable consequences, just look at this number. $2.4 trillion. That was just one economic ripple effect from one event. This is the magnitude of the self-inflicted damage we have the power to either unleash or prevent. So when it all comes down to it, the most important question isn't really about the bomb. It's about the story we choose to write in its aftermath. The physics might be predetermined, but the true fallout, the human fallout, well, that's always our choice.